So, Nick, this has not been approved yet by Apple. Do you think they're going to have a problem there, looking and sounding so much like Siri?
You mean you think they'll have a problem getting approved by Apple? I think,
exactly.
I think Apple has to approve it, or else they'll be called pernicious and nobody will trust the App Store. So Apple will approve it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's delayed a little bit. I mean, the hard part is, you know, what happened when Siri launched, and I don't think enough people recognized it, is that it really was a shot at Google. And I think Apple's incredibly smart branding, having this name and this personality Siri, has made people associate voice search with Apple and with this one voice. And so now Google, which obviously has been working on voice search forever and was going to launch a product like this, suddenly has to overcome the perception that everybody who does search is Apple, and they have to somehow catch up. It's going to be a little hard.
Google is, of course, as you say, the king of search. Apple is trying to revolutionize search with Siri. Do you think Google can effectively take the reins back from Apple on the voice issue? You know, Siri has certainly gotten mixed reviews.
Right. I mean, that's to Google's great advantage. Siri has had a lot of mixed reviews, as we talked about on the show two weeks ago. Google also has vastly more data on how we search, what we search, or what the exact things we say are when we're looking for things, what people click on when they say particular things. So it is entirely possible that Google's product will work much better just because they have so much data, and the way voice services work is through accumulation and analysis of data. So Google may be able to do much better at it than Apple has done. However, Apple does have the early branding advantage.
Is this adding up, though, to an all-out war? I mean, we reported earlier this week that Apple was kicking the YouTube app off, that Apple's now building its own mapping app. Google Maps will no longer be on iOS. It certainly seems to be one thing after the other here in terms of the fight between Google and Apple.
I know, it's amazing to think that just 2 years ago they were allied in so many different things. Absolutely. You know, every week we learn about a new fight between Google and Apple. This has largely happened because of Google's entry with Android, and then you know, competing Android's success and competing directly with Apple's main profit center. So yeah, they're going at each other hard right now. The mapping thing was a big deal. We'll see how they compete here on voice search.
Well, we know Apple doesn't like to be copied, as we've all been following this patent trial against Samsung very closely. Yeah. Apple entered a 132-page report into evidence showing Samsung engineers compared their phones to iPhones feature by feature. You've actually read this report. What's your take?
It's definitely shifted my perception of the trial. You know, I had a very skeptical view of Apple's claims when this began, and that view has shifted quite a bit, and it shifted quite a bit reading this document. It's clear that Samsung looked very carefully at the way Apple designed the interface on its phone. It's clear that Samsung very specifically said Apple does these things better than we do, and it's also pretty clear that Samsung then adjusted what they did to be more like Apple. Now, Samsung may have a good retort. You know, of course companies look at other companies' products. Of course you compare A against B, and of course you try to evolve towards best practices. But this document, it's a wonderful exercise in graphical interface design for phones. It's worth reading just for that, but it does not look good for Samsung.
Now, Samsung, of course, comes back and says, this isn't copying, this is competition. I mean, we talked to an IP lawyer who thinks this case could go all the way to the Supreme Court simply because it's not necessarily whether Samsung copied Apple, but whether design in itself can be patented. What do you think about that?
Right, absolutely. I mean, that's the question at the heart of it. I mean, and what you really hope for is I mean, as a general principle, you want tech companies to be free to learn from each other. So you only want Samsung to be penalized and to lose this case if there's very egregious and specific copying of patented material that Apple has. There's going to be a lot more facts that we need to learn about exactly the rights that Apple had over the material, exactly how Samsung copied it, exactly what they did from it. So we do have to hear from Samsung, but there are some extremely important principles at stake here. And in general, you want Samsung to win so that other companies are free to evolve and learn, unless Samsung was really gross in what they did, and it appears that they might have been.